What's going on? Locked on Wizards. Today we're going to do end of the season grades for Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma. The good, the bad, and ugly, what they did good and what they need to improve on going forward. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. So we are going to start with the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis. Now, I'm going to get into what he did well and what he needs to improve on, and a final grade for this season. So looking at the stat line for Kristaps Porzingis, with this being his first full season in DC, he averaged 23 points a game, shooting 50% from the field, 38% from three, averaging 8.5 blocks or 8.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks. So he had a really, really good season. Looking at it from a statistical standpoint, 23 points a game. Matter of fact, every member of the solid three, Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kyle Kuzma, all averaged 20 plus. So that is an encouraging sign for this core if they indeed decide to go forward. Obviously I'm a pro rebuild guy, but that's a whole nother conversation. But let's get back into Kristaps Porzingis. So what did he do well this year that I liked? Number one, he was healthy. Obviously the biggest knock against Kristaps Porzingis is his health. It's been the biggest knock against him since his time with the Knicks. He dealt with his fair share of injuries in Dallas and a lack of fit next to Luka Doncic. And, coming into DC, his first full year, obviously coming over here last season at the deadline with the trade, sending Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans to Dallas. And he was healthy, and with him being healthy leads into my second point. He played at an all-star level. In my opinion, he should have been an all-star this year because he showed that when he's healthy, he could play at a high level. He could play at an all-star level. And I think that, regardless if they decide to go forward with the solid three or they decide to rebuild, I think that Kristaps Porzingis either A, can be a building block for this franchise, or B, has value enough to where if we decide to do a sign and trade and try to get value out of him, we can. But he has a lot of value right now. So, number three, played with his back to the basket. Now, obviously, with him being kind of a skinnier center, he's not going to be able to back down a lot of your bigger centers. But what I mean by playing with his back to the basket, he used that to his advantage. He hit a lot of turnaround jumpers, and he hit them at a high clip. Again, he averaged 50. He shot 50% from the field. So he really used playing with his back to the basket to his advantage and really exploited a lot of mismatches. And I thought he did well with that. And I want to see him continue to do that if he stays in DC. But I think that is a good part of his game, playing with his back to the basket. And, his turnaround jumpers was a big tool in his offensive tool bag. So those are the things I liked. He played at a high level this year. He was healthy. He was played at all-star level. And, he evolved his game. I'll say this, he has changed certain things about himself as far as how he plays. He doesn't really play as hard. He's smarter about how he's smarter with his body, and it shows because he was healthy this year. He has the ability to shoot from the arc. He can put the ball on the floor, but he slowed down and played more of the role of a big guy as opposed to a big guy who's trying to play like a wing like he did in New York. And he's not just that, the shooter in Dallas where, Luka dribbled the ball for 15 seconds and pops it out. No, he has the ability to kind of be a playmaker, but he reverted to being a center and slow down a little bit, and it really helped his game. So let's get into what I didn't like. And it's not many things I didn't like. I've become a really big fan of KP and DC, man. Really big fan of him as a player. Obviously, being a Wizards fan, I didn't watch a lot of Knicks games when he was in New York, and obviously Dallas, we don't get a lot of Dallas games unless they're nationally televised. So seeing him face the I'm a big fan of him. So negatively, all right, let's get into the negatives. Quick trigger. Now, obviously, he has the ability to shoot, and he can shoot at a high level, but he's too quick on the trigger. He's too quick at using his shot as a first option. I want to see him kind of let the offense flow through him and really utilize the shot clock. So he's a little quick on the trigger, But when he's hitting them, he's hitting them. But when he's not, he's not. I just feel like he's a little quick on the trigger with jump shots, especially 3-point shots. But it is proven that when the offense flows to him, ball movement is fluid, and there's a lot better ball movement. Let's see. Let's see. These next 2 points aren't really knocks. There are areas that I think he can improve in, and really, they really apply to Kyle Kuzma that we're going to get into later on in this episode. But I want to see his rebounding go from good to great. I believe if he gets to be a great rebounder, he can be a force in the paint in the Eastern Conference, and that's just my opinion. Same thing with defense. He has shown that he can defend. He can be an above average defender in the paint, but again, when he goes against your bigger centers like your Andre Drummonds, your Joel Embiids, the list goes on. At times, rebounding and defense can become an issue for Kristaps Porzingis. So I want to see his defense and his rebounding go from good to great. And I think when he does that, he will reach that all-star nod and that all-star level that we see and where I think he can be. So before we move on to Kyle Kuzma, where do I grade the unicorn, aka Kristaps Porzingis? I'm going to roll with an A. I'm going to give Kristaps Porzingis an A. I believe that when healthy, which he has proven to be this season, he can play at a high level. He can play at an all-star level. He can play at a franchise cornerstone level, in my opinion. In DC, he has really turned to a great player because, like I said, he learned how to use his body. He was, as a young man in New York and Dallas, he was a little aggressive. He learned to slow down, let the game come to him, and his body has responded. And in turn, his game, and from a statistical standpoint, his stats have gotten better. I mean, he has really turned into an all-star level player here in DC. And so I'll give him an A. I'm very intrigued where his game can go, whether here in DC or if he decides to go elsewhere. So we're next, after the ad, we are going to get into Kyle Kuzma, Clutch Kuz. That's right. But before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Nissan Aria. And if I'm going to compare the Nissan Aria to my favorite Wizards player, which is Daniel Gafford, here are some attributes that I'm going to throw in there that kind of remind me of Gafford that the Aria provides. Electric, brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful. Delivers on duality, a combination of fierceness and elegance, beautiful but strong. The perfect SUV crossover. The 2023 Nissan Aria packs a pin-you-to-the-seat power and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria, the electric vehicle for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. Every day is tomorrow on the show, or rather Monday, we are going to go over a mailbag episode. We're going to answer some questions that you guys have on Twitter and YouTube. So definitely give us your best questions, and we're going to get. And also next week, we're going to get into grading the young core and grading the rest of the roster. And like I said, going into this all season, we're going to do a lot of draft and all season content. So definitely tune in because it's going to get interesting, y'all. So Clutch Kuz, get into Kuz. Now, as you know, Kyle Kuzma was acquired from the LA Lakers, sending Russell Westbrook to the Lakers in exchange for him, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell. Now, obviously, Montrezl Harrell and KCP are no longer on the team, but Kyle Kuzma, looking at his stat line, he averaged 21 points a season. He shot 45% from field goal percentage, but he shot 33% from three. He averaged 7.2 rebounds and 3.7 assists a game. So I'll say this, Kyle Kuzma, since coming over from the Lakers, has turned into a complete player. In LA, he was a role guy where he was kind of a, catch and shoot guy. He's trying to find his place, especially once LeBron came to LA, he was trying to find his place in his franchise. And, he did gain experience, especially championship experience from winning that title in the bubble with the Lakers. But he has turned into a complete player in DC. And that goes into my first point of what I like about Kyle Kuzma, especially his performances here. He's becoming a complete player. He can put the ball on the floor. He can drive the lane. At 6'10", he has the ability to drive the lane, create shots for himself, and he is really turned into a scorer in this league in DC. Number two, leadership. He's been the biggest voice in the locker room this year. Now, obviously, you want to look at two other people for leadership in this franchise. One, Coach Wesson Sale Jr., and two, Bradley Beal, because Bradley Beal is the franchise player and he is on a supermax contract. So you kind of want to look at these two guys as the forefront of leadership. But Kyle Kuzma has taken the lead, man. He's came in, he's that voice in the locker room. He's talking to guys in the huddle. His body language is on point. He's trying to help younger players. He has been the biggest leader in his locker room this season. I mentioned it before. Number 3, he uses his size. At 6'10", he can drive the lane at ease and he can finish against most of your defenders in this league. He is proven to be an electric player, who can drive the lane. He can put the ball on the floor. He can create shots for himself. The fact that he averaged almost 4 assists, he can find open shooters and create for others a little bit. It's not his MO, obviously, and he rebounds. 7.2 rebounds a game, so he rebounds. That's what you want to see out of a guy playing at the 3 and the 4. He rebounds at a high level, especially for his position. So what is it that I didn't like about Kyle Kuzma? It was the same thing as KP, man. The quick trigger, efficiency. Now, Kyle Kuzma he has a tendency to shoot the ball a lot, and he's very quick on the trigger. So efficiency, and it shows because he shot 45% from the field and 33%. Usually averages around 35% in the NBA for 3-point percentage, and he's shooting 33. So he's a little quick. Now, the reason he's clutch Kuz, he has hit big shots these last 2 years. The shot in Detroit last year, the time goes on, he has hit big shots. So again, when you see a lot of these top, I'm not gonna say top tier because he's not top tier, but I'm comparing to guys who are top tier or guys who they're scorers. If you look at your MJs, your Kobe's, your scorers, man, you're going to shoot the ball a lot. Efficiency is always going to be an issue that people have with players who are a score first guy. And, obviously, Kyle Kuzma, his efficiency takes a hit because he shoots the ball a lot and he can be a bit streaky. But again, I'm not mad at that because I like the aggression. I like how he uses his aggression, driving the lane, pushing the pace, which is something this team needs to do, but that's going to be talked about in a whole nother episode. But Kyle Kuzma has really come into his own. And these two guys that I graded today, I mean, these guys really came into DC and really have made an impact here in DC. Obviously, it is subject to change because both these players are both on player options going into the off season. And while there is news that both of these players have considered or been in talks with the organization for long-term extensions, until we see that, there's going to be a lot of speculation whether they stay or they go. So where I trade? No, excuse me. Where do I grade Kyle Kuzma? I'm going to go ahead and echo what I did with Kristaps. I'm going to go with an A. I believe that just like Kristaps, Kyle Kuzma came in here and he played at a high level, an all-star level. I believe he should have been considered at least for what do you call him? About backup all-star, because the fact of the matter, he played at a high level. Now, I do want to see him improve his efficiency, but he has become a big, complete player and very important player here in DC. So before we move on and towards the end of this episode, I'm going to go over the NBA playoffs schedule for tonight and this weekend, and we're going to go ahead and call it a day. But before we do, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, is all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part that will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed, right? Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So we are going to jump into the schedule for the playoffs now. Obviously, the Wizards aren't in the playoffs, but for most of you that I know are NBA fans, we are going to look at some of the schedule for this weekend and the current setup of the playoffs. Now, today, the 21st of April, tonight at 7 o'clock, you have the Celtics hosting, or the Atlanta Hawks, rather, hosting the Celtics. The Knicks and the Cavaliers, who are knotted at one apiece in the series. The Knicks at Madison Square Garden are hosting the Cavaliers, at 8:30, and at 9:30 on ESPN, the Denver Nuggets are going into Minnesota and trying to get a win against a Minnesota Timberwolves team that are kind of in flux. So that is your schedule, and that is at 9:30. So those three games are for tonight. Now, looking at ahead real quick, Saturday, looking 1 o'clock on TNT, the Nets host the 76ers. At 3:30, also on TNT, the Clippers host the Phoenix Suns. At 7:30 on ESPN, the Heat host the Bucks, and at 10 o'clock West Coast, the Lake Show hosts the Grizz. So that is the schedule for tonight and tomorrow for the NBA playoffs. So again, tell me what you guys think about the grades for Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma. Both, I mean, like I said, you don't know really, especially with Tommy Shepard being fired and with a new general manager eventually coming in DC. Excuse me, you don't really know what the vision is yet, because obviously Ted Leonsis has his own vision, which is kind of what Tommy Shepard's vision was, which was trying to build around Bradley Beal and try to re-sign Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma and really relegate a vast majority of your cap to three players. But, again, the firing of Tommy Shepard was a surprise. So we don't know really what Ted Leonsis, it seems like he's finally listening to the fans. And so could there be a rebuild? Could there be a retool? We don't know. But I believe that, whether Kristaps Porzingis or Kyle Kuzma stays in DC or they go off to other cities or other organizations, I believe they're going to be successful because, one hand, Kyle Kuzma has shown to be a complete NBA player, which is going to find success, whether it's here in DC or abroad. And KP got his reputation back because he showed that when healthy, he can play at a high level. And he played at an all-star level this year and, is much appreciated. And he's turned into a fan favorite here in DC, especially when if you notice that, at the end of the games, most players are going in the tunnel, go to the locker room. Where's Kristaps Porzingis? He's still on the floor signing autographs. So he's definitely found a place in the hearts of many Wizards fans already, just because of his being a humble guy. So again, both of them got an A today, y'all. So tell me what you think. Do you agree? Would you change it? Would you upgrade them? Would you downgrade the grade? So again, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I hope everybody has a blessed weekend. And thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Not every day, or tomorrow, or rather Monday on the show. And next week, we are going to be doing mailbag episodes. Also, we're going to do grades for the young core, the bench players, and then obviously going towards the draft and free agency, we are going to go do our analysis on who should stay, who should go, and who really is the best pick at the 8th to the 9th pick, which is where we're kind of looking at being drafted now. Could change, but we're going to talk a lot about it going forward in the offseason. So again, appreciate y'all. Hail to the Wizards, and